What to do, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I've got a retro album review here that I'm going to do. Basically, the rock album debut solo-wise of Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz. Now, Ozzy Osbourne was originally in Black Sabbath throughout the 70s, but he kind of, due to like drug problems and just conflicts with the other band members, kind of got kicked out of the band in 1979, and he immediately compiled this solo career with a number of notable things about it, including some of the few songs that he did with the late guitarist Randy Rhoads, who was responsible for the guitar work on one of Ozzy Osbourne's signature hits, Crazy Train, and also Mr. Crowley. So those are two of Ozzy's biggest hits even today. This was a staple. This is a seminal rock album. This was a seminal rock album. It went 5 times platinum. It may not have gone multi-platinum. It may not have gotten to the platinum degree of like AC/DC and like other albums like that, other multi-platinum albums that got to like 12 and 15 times platinum, like Metallica and AC/DC and some of them. But it's definitely a pretty crafted project, and it continues to be seen as one of the greatest metal albums of all time. I definitely give it a lot of credit. There's a number of hits on this album that I feel like are pretty rock solid. I mean, I do feel like the production is kind of dated, but I do definitely think the concept behind it is it does have a lot of impact, and it's just a pretty concrete album, especially in the metal field, for as far back as 1980. And I think that that's kind of the concept. In the United States, it came out in early 1981, but I do feel like the concept behind it is pretty powerful. Like I said, Crazy Train is a staple in rock music. It's basically one of the best rock and metal songs of all time. And Mr. Crowley was a decent, above average kind of follow up. I mean, it may not have been the smash hit overall success of Crazy Train, but it definitely was a pretty rock solid follow up that solidified what could have been for Ozzy around that time period. That just kind of happens to be the concept. So to talk about some of this, I'll go ahead and get into the singles and kind of say, I'll go ahead and get into some of the singles, and then we'll get to the rest of the album. So the first single was Crazy Train, and like I said, this is a staple in rock music. This is a song, depending upon what you listen to, depending upon what rock radio station you listen to, if you're listening to metal, classic rock, classic metal, all that type of stuff, this is a song you'll continue to hear for the most part. At some point, I would say within the week, you should probably hear Crazy Train or something like that. Crazy Train, Iron Man, possibly even Mr. Crowley on a particular day. I've heard both the singles on my local rock radio stations. I've heard Crazy Train often enough, and I've even had a couple times where I've heard Mr. Crowley. Crazy Train has a real crazy Ozzy Osbourne on this. This is a pretty manic song by Ozzy. Definitely has a pretty high octave kind of energy that definitely was needed more often. I definitely feel like he should have had, I mean, Ozzy has always been kind of a ghoulish and kind of banshee-like personality. He's always had that kind of ghostliness. He was seen as like the King of Darkness or the Prince of Darkness, something like that. And this is such a song that just feels like a very haunting song that would have felt perfect for like the fall. It was released as a single in the UK in like the fall of 1980. So it seemed like the perfect little song for like a creepy kind of autumn and that type of stuff. Definitely something that worked extremely well. I just feel like it's got that crazy riff, like Randy Rhoads tears this song apart in terms of the guitar work. This has, I mean, it's a signature, continues to be a popular riff that a lot of people look to as like the blueprint for how to do like particular guitar solos and that type of stuff. So it just has a lot of effectual pieces. I mean, it's difficult to complain about this song just because this is one of the train tracks that help bolster together metal and that type of stuff. This is kind of, when you think of like NWA's Straight Outta Compton, that was kind of a seminal rap album, or something by Public Enemy or Beastie Boys or Ice-T or Too Short or some of those type people. This is such a thing for rock music way back in 1980 and early 1981. So it's definitely kind of the thing. It's easy to give credit to this. I mean, even if you listen to like an older version of the album that's not digitally remastered and you notice that the production sounds kind of dated, this is still a pretty powerful song. So just understand that. The second single is Mr. Crowley, and this is one that, like I said, this has a pretty good kind of guitar riff and like the chorus and stuff. It's pretty signature as well. I mean, I definitely feel like when you hear this song performed, you can just tell just because of like the way that the kind of build up towards the chorus kind of goes. It's very similar to Crazy Train, maybe not as I mean, I feel like both these singles are pretty I feel like both these singles are pretty recognizable. These are both the signature songs, and if like Crazy Train could be seen as like a top 10 or top 15 rock song in terms of like all time or something like that, at least in terms of being revolutionary, I'd probably say that Mr. Crowley would probably be like top 35 or top 50 or something. I mean, both these singles are pretty powerful. I just feel like maybe the riff and like the verses is not quite as catchy as it is in Crazy Train, but it is a good song. I mean, I would probably give like Mr. Crowley like a 7 out of 10 in terms of catchiness, but that's just kind of maybe a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 where I would listen to it, but not nearly. It's not nearly as infectious, and I don't have as huge an appetite for this song as often as I do for Crazy Train. But it is a good song. It's still one. If I hear it on the radio, if I'm like in the car or something, and I hear it on the radio, I'm not going to turn the song off. I'll probably turn the song up, and I would definitely be in tune with wanting to listen to it just because it's a notable song and it's one that has its staying power. So despite that, it is a rock, especially an 80s rock classic, 80s metal classic in a lot of ways. But I still, just me saying it's a 7 out of 10 is just because I'm used to things like Korn and Metallica and AC/DC and like Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park, just all these differential things. Me being raised on 90s and 2000s metal, you see the differences between way back in 1980. But so yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about the rest of this album. I'm reviewing the 2002 reissue, so that includes the bonus song, which would be song number 10, You Looking at Me, Looking at You. So I kind of feel like I want to review that one just because it's an extra song, and this is really a short album as it is, just because it's really only 8 songs, because I'm not going to count. I mean, I could count D, but I just didn't really like that one. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the 2 songs out of 9 that I didn't enjoy. So there's only 2 songs. I like 7 out of 9 of the songs on this album. The only 2 songs I wasn't vibing with was just Goodbye to Romance and Revelation Mother Earth, which were both kind of more ballad kind of songs, more kind of uh, semblant and ambient kind of songs that I didn't really see the concept of me messing with too much. I mean, Metallica is pretty good at this too, with like a song like Nothing Else Matters. I feel like Goodbye to Romance has a similar kind of vibe as Nothing Else Matters, but if you're not really in the mood for that type of song, if you're looking to Ozzy for like more crazy songs like Crazy Train, it just kind of, especially considering that Goodbye to Romance is the next song you hear after Crazy Train, it just kind of, I do feel like there needed to be another song like Crazy Train, but that's just kind of things I didn't appreciate the energy of Goodbye. I mean, I understand that it was a part of making a good package for a rock album, just being able to try different things and kind of making like a powerful stadium ballad that's just kind of more relaxed and more wave your lighters in the sky type stuff. But I didn't, I feel like with Ozzy's solo career, he definitely needed more hits like right away as far as trying to get like the craziness in him, because he definitely was a ghoulish personality that needed it. So yeah, to talk about these other 5 songs besides the 2 singles, Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. I feel like I Don't Know and Steal Away the Night are both kind of high octane kind of songs that definitely feel good for like a night venue. I mean, these can just be kind of backyard party songs depending upon where you're at and what you're doing, but I do feel like a lot of these just feel like perfect night venue, or you're going out to hear some live music on a Friday, Saturday, something like that, or a Thursday, and you're just trying to get away and have a beer mug and that type stuff and flirt and that sort of thing. I feel like Steal Away the Night just really has a pretty carnivorous party energy. This has a pretty crazy riff similar to Crazy Train, and then I Don't Know kind of does as well. These are just both good nightclub, night venue songs. I feel like I Don't Know is a nightclub song. This definitely feels like not just a night venue, but a nightclub where there might be dancing. I feel like Suicide Solution's kind of a little bit more like, I feel like Suicide Solution's another night venue song, very similar to Steal Away the Night and I Don't Know, but not quite as crazy or riff on there. A little bit more of like a hangout song, a little bit more relaxed energy, just kind of schmoozing and mingling a little bit, just kind of kicking back, enjoying the night, taking in the sights, smelling the roses, a little bit more that sort of thing. Just really feels to me more like a hangout song. And then You Looking at Me, Looking at You is kind of a night venue song. This is another one. I mean, a lot of these are night venue songs. I guess I'll talk about, there's one other one. There's No Bone Movies is kind of like a summer evening kind of song. This is definitely one that didn't feel like a night venue song, but it just kind of felt like No Bone Movies kind of felt like a summer evening kind of song, very similar to like Back in Black by AC/DC. Just that kind of more backyard porch kind of feel where this is kind of more in the hazy heat wave kind of summer type feel of it. Just felt like it to me. It felt like an evening kind of song, not quite as in the crest of summer like AC/DC's Back in Black, but just kind of a hazy kind of one for like a summer evening. And then I also feel like You Looking at Me, Looking at You is kind of a night venue song. This is just another kind of typical one. This should have been on the original album. I'm glad it's on the reissue. I mean, considering that 2002 is over 20 years ago as well, it's kind of underneath the impression where you shouldn't really notice the difference of not having the addition with this album. But then you might. You might. I don't know if my version of the album has You Looking at Me, Looking at You, but it's just another stock kind of night venue song, and it just has perfect energy for it. So it's got a good, kind of has an uppity riff on there. It's probably like a high mid tempo type one. But yeah, there's some crazy riffs on here. Randy Rhoads really did a great job with this. Ozzy Osbourne had some great vocals. This is just overall good packaging of a project. The rest of the band members did excellent as well. Just got some good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and give this album me liking 7 songs out of 9. Like I'm not gonna count D. I didn't really like what was kind of up with that one either. That was yeah, me liking 7 songs out of 9. I'm not gonna count D just because I really didn't like the production on that song. It didn't match anything else of the kind of ghostly and kind of more banshee like atmosphere of the rest of Blizzard of Oz. But I do feel like it just was like a 50-second song anyway, so it's not like it. I mean, I could slash from it, but it just kind of feels like it to me. This album just feels like there's 9 songs if you count You Looking at Me, Looking at You. So me liking 7 out of 9. I'm gonna give this album like an 8.75 out of 10 because I feel like it's got some good stuff, but I do kind of feel like the album is pretty much bolstered on the energy of Crazy Train. I feel like that's kind of the concept. That's the biggest selling point. And I kind of feel like I'm surprised that this album did not kind of sell more than 4 or 5 times platinum. It hit 5 times platinum like a few years ago, like 6, 7, 8, something like that. I don't know when it did, but just to kind of say that that's really kind of trite considering how most metal albums kind of did, especially considering that this is a 40-year-old album. So I'm surprised that Crazy Train was like the only real selling point. I mean, I think people like Mr. Crowley, but it is very much is like I did a video several months ago about Thursday night kind of songs where you listen to when you might have work the next day, but you still want to go out and party a little bit, where it's not quite Friday where you've got 3 days to do whatever, but it's just kind of like the night before the night. I kind of feel like that's the kind of song that Mr. Crowley is, where it's just kind of like this kind of more of like a Wednesday, Thursday night kind of song where it's just kind of where the energy is maybe turned up to like 6 or 7 out of 10 as opposed to 9 or 10 out of 10 like on Crazy Train. It's a good song. I definitely like hearing Mr. Crowley when it's on the radio, but it's not one that I always make a beeline to go and get to. And I think that that's kind of the concept about it. Is just me trying to say that it just is it's an above average but kind of more serviceable metal song. That's just kind of the concept about it. But it just didn't really, this album doesn't have much in terms of single promotion to really back this album. I feel like Crazy Train is the highest selling point, but it does have some crazy riffs on here. I do feel like Randy Rhoads did a great job, like with songs like Steal Away the Night and I Don't Know, and songs like that, and Suicide Solution are some good ones that were they're actually the thing that Ozzy has in spades on this album is album cuts. He definitely made a classic album, damn near I would say, if you can just slash like just really, I mean the metal songs that he did are the best moments. The only real thing I felt like kind of needed work, or at least was something I wasn't getting into, the only real thing I wasn't getting into were just these power ballads, which was just Goodbye to Romance and Revelation. But other than that, if he would have just had an album full of like the metal songs, it probably would have been a full blown classic. I can pretty much guarantee that that would have happened. But it just needed another hit single, another selling point, and maybe just kind of wondering how. I suppose maybe one day I could try to get into some of those power ballads, but I don't really listen to Nothing Else Matters very often by Metallica and those type songs. I just don't know how often I would be in the mood for those, but they are there. So 8.75 out of 10. Plenty of album cuts, plenty of good moments, plenty of good riffs, plenty of good night venue party type songs, and just getting crunk in like a ghoulish kind of autumn based manner and kind of a creepy kind of aspect. Ozzy was a Prince of Darkness, King of Darkness around that time, so it just works. So I just have to say the social score I will give an 8 out of 10 for the same reason, because I feel like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley are the selling points, but a lot of people I feel like pretty much would like Crazy Train hand over fist over Mr. Crowley, and it just doesn't have any other singles. I know that that was difficult for albums back in the early 80s, but this is kind of like hell. It just sticks out to me like a glaring, it sticks out like a sore thumb nowadays, just seeing that concept of just how that kind of went. But I understand this is an album that's over 40 years old. This is kind of the thing. The 8 Social, in terms of the future, like Ozzy dropped an album, I want to say back in either 2020 or 2021, maybe even 2022. He's dropped a few projects since then, so it's interesting to kind of see what's up with them. I do at least want to review Diary of a Madman relatively soon, so we'll get to that and kind of see what's up with it. But this does have some class on here. There's definitely some good moments. Don't think when I say that Crazy Train is the best moment that there aren't other good moments. There's just not promotional stuff single wise that's as good as Crazy Train. There's just only one other single, and it's just like I said, Crazy Train is hand over fist better than Mr. Crowley. So that's kind of the concept.